feasibility study. Everyone should have a copy with them. We'll consider adopting the Granville County Trail feasibility study. Is there a motion?
Motion.
They would like to make a presentation.
They would like to do a presentation.
I'm sorry, teenager time. Come on up, sir. I'm sorry, I missed it. I'm sorry. Yeah, presentation.
I was going to move it.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Andrew Meeker. I'm the North Carolina manager for the East Science. We're a nonprofit organization that is planning and advocating for a greenway path, like a bicycle pedestrian trail, separate traffic that will extend from the Canadian border in Maine down to the Florida Keys. And our route goes through Oxford here. It's not quite the midpoint, but it's very close. And so part of my role is going through the process of planning, feasibility study, finding funding for engineering design, and ultimately working with communities to help support the construction of East Coast Greenway. So this feasibility study was a years-long process that was funded by a group through NCDOT. And it kind of built off of a study that was performed maybe a year and a half or 2 years-ish ago that looked at the southern half of Granville County. So Oxford as kind of the meeting point where these two studies are threaded together. So this second study kind of completes the route proposed or preferred alignment from the border in Virginia down to Butner. And in the study, there's approximately 4 miles of which are in the jurisdiction of the city of Oxford. And so as part of the study, we had a steering committee and we had public engagement opportunities, and there was different alignments that were considered, some that kind of went more along rural roadways and stream corridors, another that kind of followed the right-of-way within the US 15. And then the preferred alignment that was ultimately selected was going along the path of the inactive Norfolk Southern rail corridor from kind of Oxford to that extends to Clarksville, Virginia. And so what we're requesting today is the adoption of the study, which wouldn't commit the city to anything necessarily, but would officially incorporate this as a plan that would be used and referenced for funding opportunities and for complete street opportunities that NCDOT might have when they're expanding roadways and other planning purposes. And so I'm happy to discuss details in the executive summary, which you have, and answer any other questions before the motion. Thank you.
How long do you envision before this could start? You know, I know we're looking at years, but how long do you think?
Yes, it's
Because there's funding to
fair question. So the study is, the implementation is designed in 4 parts. There's the rail corridor section is split into 3 parts. So the southern section, which is considered phase 1, is in Oxford. And then it's kind of split between Oxford and the Virginia line at, I think, Stovall. And so that's phase 1, 2, 3, and going north. And then there's a catalyst project, which is kind of envisioned almost like a pilot project that would connect downtown Oxford to Lake Devon. And the hope is that could start as soon as the city of Oxford and Granville County and other partners such as the Cartar COG and RPO and NCDOT are sort of ready to pursue that. But many of these projects take years to kind of the next stages would be seeking funding for design, engineering, and permitting, and then construction. So it would be many years, even for that pilot or catalyst project. And then kind of the next step for the rest of it would be the acquisition of the Norfolk Southern Corridor. And I can speak to that as well, because we have a corollary example in Durham and Person County right now.
I'll ask you about it. Have you approached them, the railway company?
So we have partnered with a national conservation organization called the Conservation Fund. And it's a national organization, but it has a North Carolina-based chapter. And they have their kind of director of urban programs, I think, David Proper, has developed a really good relationship with Norfolk Southern Railroad. And the model that we're proposing is they have a revolving loan fund. And so the Conservation Fund could take care of all of the surveying and title work and the complexities of such unusual and unique acquisition. And they would purchase it from the rail company. And the rail company is aware of the interest, and they're in the process of kind of, preliminary due diligence. And then the public, being NCDOT, Granville County, City of Oxford, would then have a little buffer time to come up with the funding package to then purchase it from the Conservation Fund and put it into.
I'm sure that some of this is in your documentation, but I hadn't read the whole thing yet. But what is it to look like? And do you have an estimate of the cost to the city of Oxford?
Sure. So the vision of what it looks like is, I think a 12-foot wide paved path that's separated from traffic and includes, crossing designs across roadways that would be safe, and it would be accessible for people of all abilities, and be able to be used, primarily by local residents, but also hopefully kind of a tourist attraction for folks who want to bike on these types of trails or long distance walkers, what have you.
And it would be paved, or is it dirt?
So there's kind of some option of flexibility in there. It wouldn't be like a hiking path as you imagine in the woods, but there are accessible paths, that are ADA accessible, that are not paved, but kind of packed stone dust, if you could imagine, similar to like a dirt road. So it's constructed, and it's firm and flat, but wouldn't be paved. And kind of the trade-off there is it is cheaper initially to construct that, but it requires more maintenance long-term, whereas the paved path would be easier to maintain on the kind of year by year by a parks department, for example. And the estimated costs,
11.9.
Yeah, phase one, we've got it.
you see it there, I'm trying to find it, okay. Right. And what I'll say about that is it's a significant infrastructure project, and it costs a significant amount of money. And the expectation is not that the city of Oxford would budget for that amount, but it would more closely look like coming up with some match funding to leverage either state or federal funds. That would be the bulk of that funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question. All right, is this related to anything with the GO Rail? You haven't heard of GO Rail?
Go Rail?
Yeah.
Not familiar with that.
Okay, maybe not. Rest of that. They sent me an email at a meeting, just sort of. Okay. talking about the rail system, not go rail, just ask for maintenance. I'll get with Tina then, so we can dilate that together somehow. What's going on, just in case.
So, thank you for your presentation. Just, you mentioned, maintenance, or, I guess, I guess the paved being, of course, much more easier to maintain than as far as the maintenance, itself, where would the responsibilities lie? I mean, because we're talking about a stretch from, I guess from the Virginia state line, to here, but as far as the maintenance, who would be required to do the maintenance on that?
So, yeah, thank you for that question. I would say roughly the maintenance would be split respective to sort of the jurisdictional boundaries. As in the city of Oxford would be responsible for the segment within the city lines. Or perhaps it could extend to the ETJ. And I think that would be sort of a negotiation with the county. I don't know this, but I would imagine the city may have more capacity than the county for something like that. But I don't, that's up for you, the county and the city, to sort of divvy up. But yeah, I think either the city limits or the ETJ would be the expectation. And as it stands, the NCDOT does not maintain any bicycle and pedestrian facilities. I hope that they develop that capacity because they are a multimodal department, and this is part of a state transportation system. I should say NCDOT had a Great Trail State Plan where they developed a network of trails like this that connect all 100 counties across the state. And so this alignment is part of that plan. So they have a plan to sort of implement things like this, but I hope that they can eventually develop the capacity to back that up with maintenance responsibilities as well. I'm doing my best to plant that seed.
That was I was access because I saw Stovall's got approximately 7 miles, and if you add Oxford, we have about 12 miles roughly. So I guess the county will be responsible for Stovall section, or is that how we work that?
We would just work all those things.
Yeah.
I think by time, that would be a minor thing by time this gets accomplished.
Any other questions for the gentleman? Thank you very much for the presentation. Tina, would you like to add anything to this? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll consider adopting Granville County Trails feasibility study. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Motion carries. I'm sorry. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Now the motion carries. Is order. I won't have anything to add. So at this time, I will seek a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Motion.
That's standard.
Set the agenda to next week.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Basically, board meeting for next week is pretty much standard. We have a delegation from the Meadows that do a presentation on the project they're out there. There's gonna be a proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. There'll be a presentation by Arnett Mudrow. And we'll go in to consider approving the new community brand. We'll move from that to a public comment. We do have a public hearing scheduled. We'll be to consider approving rezoning of the 3 lots in Hicks Mill Road, lot number 601, 603, 605. The current zone is neighborhood business. The owners like to rezone in order consistent with the character of the neighborhood and the recent development improvement. We will go to consider awarding fiscal year 2023-24 audit contract to S. Preston Douglas and Associates. We'll then consider adopting a resolution that accepts a grant in the amount of $150,000 State Wastewater Reserve Program. We will go down to 4.5, consider funding requests for the wastewater treatment plant from the DWI Division of Water Infrastructure. Then we move to consider adopting revised 2024 capital improvement plan. And that will move to consent agenda and we'll adjourn. And subject again, if we want to add something, if there's something we
Make a motion, we adopt the agenda as written, as presented.
Second.
second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we now have a motion to go on to executive session. Do we have a motion? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Mhm.
Motion. We'll be going into executive session.